They're giving us a function g defined as an integral from -4 to x. They gave us the graph of the function that they're integrating. So I know right off the bat that if this is the graph of f and g is the integral of f, what I actually have here is a graph of g prime. It's just important to note that. And then we're going to try to talk about what g of -1 is, g prime of -1, and g double prime of -1. G of -1 is the most straightforward. I'm simply going to take that function definition that they gave us and replace these x's with -1s. So I integrated from -4 to -1 the function that they gave me. And at this point we are going to interpret that integral as an area between the curve and the x-axis. So I'll start here at -4 and I'll go to -1 and I'll find the area of the shape. Since I'm moving from -4 towards -1 and these y values are below the x-axis, I know it's going to be a negative value. And I think I viewed this as a trapezoid with this as a base and this is a base and this is a height. But a lot of people like to break it up as a rectangle and a triangle and you get the same answer. No one really cares how you get the answer as long as you can get to -15/2. It's fine. Moving on to finding g prime of -1. This is where this relationship here and understanding to translate this as this is crucial. To find g prime of -1, I know g prime is the same thing as f. So this essentially boils down to finding f of -1. And f of -1 means go to where x is -1 and figure out the y value of the function when x is -1. I can see I've got the point here very clearly marked as -1, -2. So f of -1 is -2. Therefore, since g prime is the same thing as f, g prime of -1 is also just that, simply that y value, -2. Moving on to g double prime, well, that's this guy's derivative. And so that would mean that if I want to find g double prime, and I know that f is g prime, g double prime must be this guy's derivative. And now we have to interpret the derivative as the slope of the point. We have the graph of f. If I want to know about f prime, I want the slope of the point on f. Unfortunately, this graph, there's a little corner there at x equals -1. I've written all over it, but you saw the original one. And the slope at -1 of f is not defined. So because this is a straight line segment and then at -1 it kind of suddenly veers off in another direction, that's a corner, the derivative is not defined there. So f prime of -1 is not defined, therefore g double prime of -1 is not defined. So again, it's just about these relationships between the antiderivative, the derivative, and if this is not making sense, please come see me during office hours so I can read your face, ask you more pointed questions, and you'll get this worked out.